This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome to the second episode of the brand new Place to Be Nation Sports Network. I, of course, am Nick Duke. When last you heard me, we were discussing a little college football with my SEC brethren, Greg Phillips and Andrew Reich. But this time out, we're going to talk a little pro football as we're going to turn our attention to the NFL. And I'm going to reach up to the Northeast for two guys that I had a blast with in New Orleans this year and can't wait to see again one day. Those being, first, Mr. Roger Morrissette. Raj, how you doing this evening?
Hey, doing great, Nick. Happy to be here. Can't wait to talk some football, my friend.
And it is a very special day as we record this because it is Roger's 39th birthday. So a big happy birthday to you, sir.
Thanks. That's the one unfortunate thing going on.
Oh, come on. But this show would
I'm still younger than Tom Brady.
Still always be younger than Tom Brady. Oh my God, there's gonna be lots of Tom Brady talk on this show, I'm sure. But this show would not be complete without the man himself who is joining us, Mr. John D'Amato. John, how are you this fine evening?
Thank you, sir. I'm great. It's great to talk to you guys. Psyched for some football season. As a Met fan, there was no baseball season for me, so let's get it going.
yeah. I'm not gonna take a shot like I would if Scott were on the line because he's always talking shit about my Braves. So I'll let the Mets stuff go for tonight. But guys, let's just go ahead and jump right in. What we're going to do is, guys, we're going to kind of take you through division by division, just some general talk, go over the four teams in each division, and then give you a division pick. And then at the end of the night, of course, we'll wrap up with our playoff teams, our Super Bowl teams, and maybe some individual awards as well. So just taking it alphabetically down the list, let's start in the AFC. Let's start with the AFC East. And, I mean, God, it's the same story. It's been in this division for what feels like 20 years now, even though I know it's almost been 20, not quite 20, like 17. Roger, it's you guys and everybody else, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to think of it any other way this year. I do think the Jets have a little bit of potential. Don't tell my good friend JT that. But I mean, one of these years something's going to happen and the Pats are going to fall off. But very, very difficult to predict that this year.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can see is like maybe some of the off-the-field stuff, like the controversy with, Brady and Guerrero and then Gronk doing the constant, waffling back and forth on whether or not he wants to play and all the reported tension between Brady and Belichick. But if you just look at the rosters, I mean, nobody else in this division really seems ready to step up and challenge them in any kind of way. Like you said, the Jets, they're coming, but they're probably a couple of years away at least. Nobody knows what to make of Buffalo. Miami seems to be dead set on getting rid of every decent player they have come through there because they want, quote, toughness or whatever the hell that means. So it's just it's a weird look for that division right now. John, how are you seeing this one?
Well, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, for this year, it's definitely what you guys say. There's definitely going to be a New England year for this year. But there's light at the end of the tunnel, especially for the Jets and the Bills with their quarterback situation. There's a lot of optimism over Josh Allen and Sam Darnold. So the situation doesn't look hopeless as it has in the years past. So this might be the last year where we see New England dominance.
It's very possible.
A little bit of crazy talk there, but that's all right.
That's a great question, though. I mean, how many more years can the Patriots keep this going? Do you think Brady's got 3 years left in him, like you said before? I don't know. I kind of think the end might be near for him.
I mean, it could be. I mean, he's already an outlier in that respect,
right?
And I mean, it's been eventually the folks saying he's going to fall off a cliff are going to be right? I mean, Father Time's undefeated.
It happens to everybody.
He's the oldest non-kicker in the league. I mean, he did just throw for 500 yards in the Super Bowl, less than not that long ago,
right?
But he takes care of his body in such a way that's helped him defy age. But even you look at like Kobe Bryant in basketball. One day, I mean, he was great, and then he blew out his Achilles, and he was basically done after that. I mean, that's something like that could very well happen with Brady. I'd argue this year specifically that if Brady went down week one, the Patriots would still win this division this year, and that's not being a homer. The division looks bad a lot of years. It looks terrible this year. I mean, first hot take of the night from the Cowboy here is Buffalo is the worst team in the NFL. They are the worst team in the NFL this year. 2-14. They made the playoffs last year, a little bit of smoke and mirrors.
Okay.
But they lost their whole offensive line. I mean, they have no offensive line, and McCoy, if we want to talk about off-the-field stuff.
Yeah, I mean...
There's some issues there.
Yeah.
And, Josh Allen, I think he's got the tools to be good, but I think you saw in the preseason game number 3 that he's probably not ready to lead an NFL offense, and we all saw Peterman last year, so
yeah.
The Bills were awful.
Yeah, Josh Allen, to me, I liked him a lot coming out of college just because of all the arm tools, but he kind of plays the game in that Brett Favre gunslinger mentality where he's going to make a lot of throws that just don't make any sense because he's convinced he can fit the ball into the tiniest of windows. And the problem is he's not that accurate of a passer yet. I think he'll be good down the road, but I'm kind of with you. Going to be a rough year for Buffalo. John, you brought up Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, of those two quarterbacks, which one of those young guys you like better?
I would have to give the edge to Darnold. He's come right out the gate since his first snap, and the kid just looks like he's got it. He's going to be the youngest starting quarterback in NFL history, and he's definitely going to take his lumps because the Jets also with Buffalo, the Jets have their offensive line issues too. It's just a shame that it's kind of the story of the Jets franchise. Like when years ago when they had Sanchez, they had that solid offensive line with Nick Mangold and DeBrickashaw Ferguson, and now they don't really have those guys. So now they got the quarterback in place, but now the next step is the next couple of years they got to use some draft picks. They got to establish that line and then protect the franchise.
At least they have some guys. They have some guys that they have good deep receiving core.
Yeah.
Couple good running backs.
Yeah, I like the Isaiah Crowell pickup from Cleveland. He was a bit player in Cleveland, but was pretty productive when he played for a bad team. I think you put him there with Sam Darnold, he's probably going to be a lot better than he was in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And also a big thing is how Bates, how the
and I think the Jets are technically a bigger underdog than Buffalo this year, but they have some real good young pieces on their defense.
Yep.
Really good young defensive line. And Jamal Adams, I think, is already one of the 4 best safeties in the NFL, and he's just going to get better. So I think they at least have the pieces in place where they can stay in games. But I do think they're a year or two away, and I think Darnold's very, very much the real deal and was an absolute steal at 3. I like Mayfield. We'll talk about them, but
yeah.
I think that could very well go down as another Browns just total boner.
You mentioned the Jets D, and it would not be a football show with me on it without me throwing a shout-out to one of my Georgia boys, Jordan Jenkins in the middle of that defense at middle linebacker. Like him a lot, so we'll see what he does for the Jets this season. The one team we haven't really talked about a lot is Miami, and like I said at the top, it feels like, Adam Gase is just actively running guys out of that locker room, whether it was Jay Ajayi last year during the season or whether it was any of the offseason departures, Ndamukong Suh, for example. What is up with
Landry?
Jarvis Landry, great call there because he went to Cleveland where I think he's going to do really well. But what is up with this Adam Gase-led team? They go to the playoffs 2 years ago, and now this roster looks completely different. Yeah, you get Tannehill back, but I don't know, man. I got big question marks about the Dolphins this year.
Yeah, I mean, it really starts at the quarterback. For anyone who listened to the Sports Lounge, I don't think Tannehill's good. I think.
Oh man, you have just endeared yourself to big Dolphins fan Greg Phillips, who hates Ryan Tannehill with an undying passion.
He's a bum. I mean, he's real. I mean, he's not developmental anymore, and he's just one of the 6 or 7 worst quarter starters in the league. So they need to move on from him. I don't completely dislike them cleaning house. I would question some of the moves, some of the guys they did keep. Like they gave Kenny Stills quite a bit of money, which if you're going to be rebuilding, why are you going to pay a 30-ish receiver anyway? But I think they're prepared. I mean, Gase is marching toward 7-9, 8-8 at best again, and there's no direction. And the less we say about the Dolphins, the better. At least the Bills and the Jets have a bright. They have some hope for the future. The Dolphins, they need to blow it up, and they've kind of done it, but not really.
John, do you see the Dolphins any differently than Raj?
The one thing I'd have to slightly disagree or just throw in there from you guys, I think the Landry getting rid of it is kind of addition by subtraction. Basically, he's just averages 7 yards a catch, and not much yardage there. And watching the Hard Knocks, he seems to have attitude issues. Doesn't really block, and finish out his roots. And he's really beefing with Haley, the offensive coordinator of Cleveland. So. But he's more like a fantasy guy, a stat guy. I don't really think he's a winning player. So, Amendola is going to be Danny Amendola, and Albert Wilson will probably make up for Landry's production.
Two more terrible signings, awful signings, both those guys. And I don't disagree, John. That I mean, especially like Landry got a ton of money for a slot receiver, and
for 7 yards a catch. I mean, But yeah, I could say, of course, there's going to be a difference catching pass from Brady and catching passes from Tannehill for Amendola. But he didn't really sign for a lot of money, so.
It's going to be interesting. I guess, we're all at the same place with New England. Probably the winner of this division. I think it's going to be all three of our picks. So instead of asking you guys to pick the winner of this division, how about this? Who finishes second here? I'm going to take the Jets.
Yeah, I'm going with Jets too.
Wow, I'll take the Jets too.
Wow. So, do we think they can actually contend for a playoff spot, or is this more of like a 7-9, 8-8 in a really bad division and finishing second?
You never know. Things can go your way. So sometimes you play teams and they're on an injury, or they got a couple of injuries this week, and if everything breaks right, they could definitely sneak in a wild card 9-7. Sure.
Yeah, they do get to play the Bills and the Dolphins twice.
That's very true.
Yeah,
I mean,
but those rivals, no matter how those games go, they usually split. No matter between the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins, they all wind up splitting against each other. No matter how good or how bad they are, they're always upset. Like even the year a couple of years ago when the Jets could have made the playoffs and they missed out because they lost to the Bills twice.
Yep.
So those divisions, yeah.
All right, well, that about puts a bow on the AFC East. Why don't we hop over to the AFC North, where I think it's kind of the same thing again, where we're talking about one team that kind of seems to be head and shoulders above the other three. Granted, here I think it's a little bit closer. Pittsburgh has been, tops in that division for what feels like a long time and seems to be that again. Raj, what about you? Do you see the gap narrowing there between Pittsburgh and maybe a Baltimore or a Cleveland?
Yeah, I like Baltimore this year a bit. Pittsburgh, I mean, it's a health thing.
Mm-hmm.
They've been riding Bell into the ground, and obviously he's holding out from camp. I mean, he's going to play. He's going to come back week 1, but you read, the history behind guys that have gotten the kind of workload that he's gotten over the last couple of years is not great from an injury perspective. And Big Ben he tends to get dinged up, and he's older. So healthy, I mean, they're as good as anybody in the NFL. But an injury, particularly to Roethlisberger, which is not an impossibility. And they're Mason Rudolph or Landry Jones, whoever comes in there is not going to. It's a different team, is what I'm saying. I think Baltimore could really contend with them this year. And I hate to say this, because I'll probably get laughed out of the room, but I think the Bengals have I think they could be one of those surprise, the NFL with parity. Right. I mean, they have the talent, and Dalton is due to have like a decent year, and Johnny Ross is back, and he looks good in the preseason, and they have some players on defense, so they people forget they were kind of a perpetual playoff team up until 2 years ago. I think they could have a bounce back.
If JT were on this show to hear you talk, give positive thoughts about Andy Dalton, I'm pretty sure he'd laugh you out of the room, by the way. So, I don't know. John, what about you, man? Who are you seeing as the main contender to Pittsburgh in this division?
It's definitely the Ravens, but they're kind of going to be in a similar situation, maybe not similar to the Jets, but basically they have to work on how they're going to move in Lamar Jackson and how they're going to move out Flacco. So it's definitely it's not going to happen this year. I mean, Flacco is going to have the reins this year, but definitely the Ravens. And I don't agree, Raj, on the Bengals. As a matter of fact, I'm not really good at predicting, but if you put a gun to my head, I would say they have a worse record than the Browns.
Oh man, now that's a little bit of a hot take, and I'm torn on it because I actually think Cleveland has the potential to be better than people are expecting. I am not as down on the Mayfield pick as you are, Raj. And, of course, I think they have a really nice receiving core around him. They've invested in that defense, whether it was the Myles Garrett pick last year or the Denzel Ward pick this year. They're putting some talent on defense and some nice pieces around Baker Mayfield. If he winds up being just okay, they could be a 7-8 win team, in my opinion.
He's not going to play.
Unlike the Jets, they pretty much put him on the back burner until later in the season, or if Taylor gets hurt. So.
But Taylor's capable of leading a real team. Nick, we know. I think Nick Chubb. You could just say it. That's clouding your judgment a little bit.
No. Actually, okay. Let me go on the record here and say this. I actually don't think Nick Chubb's going to be that good of a pro back. Nick Chubb before the ACL injury was a completely different player than the Nick Chubb we see after the ACL injury. And that one little split second of additional burst that he no longer has is all the difference in the NFL level. Those windows are going to close a lot faster. You can't bowl over guys and power your way through guys as regularly at the NFL level as you did in college. I'm not high on Nick Chubb's prospects as a feature back in the NFL. I think he can carve out a nice little role as a goal line specialist or something like that. But in terms of being your every down back, I don't see him ever developing into that at the NFL level.
Interesting. Well, they have Hyde. They gave Hyde big money. I mean, if you look on paper, they're right there. I personally think it's going to be like a 7-9, 8-8 season for them, which for Cleveland fans might as well be a freaking Super Bowl.
That's a parade. Yeah, that's a parade of Cleveland.
And then I think next year and the year after, I think they have they have the pieces in place to be a good team. I think Hugh Jackson's an awful coach, so I think he's gone. I think he's gone after this year, and that they'll bring somebody in who can get the most out of those guys. Give Baker a fresh coach when he takes over next year.
Yeah, you're probably right on that. I mean, Hugh Jackson, his record has been so abysmal. Now, granted, he probably had the worst roster in the league, so what can you really do with that? But the idea of him being there long term is kind of laughable, in my opinion. On the Baltimore thing, since you guys brought it up, I'm not sold on Lamar Jackson either as a pro prospect. I think he struggled with accuracy in college at times, and I think he's going to run into a little bit of that Johnny Manziel factor where that running around and creating isn't as easy to do once you get to this level as it was in college. A lot of people have compared him to a Deshaun Watson, but what people forget about Deshaun Watson is he was always a throw-first guy in college, had a super accurate arm. I don't see it for Lamar Jackson personally. I mean,
no, he doesn't remind me of Watson really at all. The way he plays, he hasn't looked good in the preseason. I think it's actually helps the Ravens a little bit that he does look like he needs to sit because Flacco's not great, but they're a better team with him playing quarterback right now, and I think they'll work Jackson into some gadget plays and stuff like that. But he really needs to sit and learn. And he's not ready. I think it would ruin him if he took over the offense this year.
Man, John, what about you? How are you seeing Baltimore?
Well, they're still paying Flacco all that money, so they're definitely Flacco has to pay. But I never count out the Ravens with John Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the league, in my opinion, and also Suggs.
Yeah,
Terrell Suggs is still there, and their defense and their front four is still one of the best in football. Along with their DBs, so that could keep them in any game. And they're playoff tough, so if they get in the wild card, they could be dangerous.
One thing we haven't talked about is the Le'Veon Bell situation in Pittsburgh. It seems like this contract thing has been going on with him for 3 years now, and there's no long-term solution in sight. I mean, what is the future of Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh, if at all?
Well, I think the solution is they're just going to try to juice every carry out of him and then show him the door after this year. That's pretty much it. And he pretty much knows the game. He's not going to show up until day one, until game week one. Mm-hmm. He's not going to set foot in the practice field one more time. And the Steelers pretty much are going to get every carry out of him, every screen pass out of him, and suck the life out of him, and then send him on his way, and save the money for Antonio Brown and whoever else, the other stud receivers.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, it's not like he's playing for chump change. doing the franchise thing every year. I mean, it's not ideal, but I mean, he's still, his salary is still huge, but it's only 1 year. But I completely agree, John. I mean, honestly, like strategically, it's the right thing to do with a running back, right? You don't need to pay a running back all that money. You just do what they're doing, and it's like what the Cowboys did with DeMarco Murray. Just give him 1,000 carries, and then he breaks down. And James Conner's the new back.
Yeah, they're grooming Connor. They're high on him. Yep. They're confident that in their offensive system they could plug in. And I mean,
he's not going to be Le'Veon Bell, but I mean, if he's 85% of Le'Veon Bell for $500,000 a year, that's fine with them.
Yeah, plus the Steelers seem to have the mojo with any receiver they draft. Whether it's Martavis Bryant or Juju, sure. So with all those weapons, the running backs can get a lot of room to eat.
Well, and I think they know too that Ben isn't going to be around forever.
Right.
He's already talked about retiring.
Yep.
So,
that could be interesting because they could definitely be a playoff team this year and then be right there in the quarterback market, in the offseason. So a lot of things there to watch in Pittsburgh.
They drafted Mason Rudolph in the second round, so they must like him.
They did. Mason Rudolph's one of those guys. Oklahoma State quarterbacks have come out of that system, and nobody has really, found great success in the NFL since Mike Gundy has been there at Oklahoma State. Look at, I guess, Brandon Weeden being the most notable example of a guy that just didn't pan out. But we'll see what comes of Mason Rudolph. He's certainly got all the physical tools. Just a question of can he put it together mentally when, your coach is not calling your plays for you at the line of scrimmage. You're not looking to the sideline to make all your checks. So going to be interesting for Mason Rudolph as he develops over the next few years.
He does have the advantage over Brandon Weeden of not being 29 years old.
That's a great point. Doesn't have male pattern baldness already in his rookie season. So
the Browns,
AFC North. I guess we're all going Pittsburgh, or is somebody else going to go a different way?
No, definitely Steelers.
I'll pick the Steelers to win the division.
All right, so in the same way as the AFC East, then who finishes second and is contending for a wild card out of the division? Anybody?
Ravens.
Yeah, I would kind of look at it that same way too. If anybody's going to contend for a wild card here, it's probably the Ravens.
The Bengals, and they're going to get the wild card.
Wow.
You heard it here first.
Oh, boy.
Okay. I like it. All right, next, let's hop down to the AFC South, where coming into this year, you've got the defending AFC South champion, Jacksonville Jaguars, who, of course, were just in the AFC Championship game a year ago with Blake freaking Bortles at quarterback. I can't see them putting lightning in a bottle twice as it relates to Blake Bortles. There's no way you go that far being that limited at the most important position in the game again. I can't see it. I'm sorry. Raj, what about you?
Their schedule's a lot more difficult this year. Like they had basically a last place schedule last year, which really helped them along. Yeah. I mean, if you look this year, they have home for the Patriots, at the Giants, at Kansas City, at Dallas, home for the Eagles, home for Pittsburgh. I mean, these at Houston. I mean, they have a really difficult schedule. I think their defense is for real. I mean, they're young and they're good, and I'm a big believer in if you have those shutdown cornerbacks, that you're in pretty good shape. So they have the shutdown corners. They have Ramsey and Bouye, and they have a pass rush. So their defense will keep them in games. I think their offense really hinges on Fournette. Fournette supposedly came to camp in better shape than he was last year. If he can vault himself into that Gurley, Le'Veon Bell conversation and really put the offense on his back, I think they have a chance to repeat. But because of the schedule, it's definitely a tougher road for them than it was last year.
And let's not forget they just lost Marquise Lee at receiver to an injury in the most recent in the third preseason game against the Falcons. So that definitely hurts in terms of weapons around Blake Bortles, which was already a little bit limited when you look outside of Leonard Fournette. John, what about you, man? How are you seeing Jacksonville this year? Do you think they're able to replicate that success from a year ago?
Yes, I'm high on the Jaguars. They got one of the best front sevens in football, and as Roger expounded on their defensive backs, Ramsey and Bouye, this is a passing league, and when you have shutdown corners like that, along with great safeties and a Miles Jack at linebacker that could shut down any defense, they could win any game. And I think Bortles is going to improve a little. That playoff game versus Pittsburgh is going to give him some confidence heading into the season. He's a little shaky on his throws, but he's got like escapability, and he can he keeps plays alive with his feet. So he really got crapped on a lot during like the middle of the season when he hit a rough patch. But I think that playoff and a decent showing versus New England, I think it's going to boost his confidence, and they're going to take this division.
All right,
also I look for Des Bryant to sign up here at the last minute.
Oh, okay, Des to Jacksonville. You heard it here first from Tomato. Yeah, that's a possibility with the Marquise Lee injury now. I hadn't even really considered that, but I think it would make a lot of sense. I mean, Des is an age where he's not really going to stretch the field anymore, but a possession receiver in that system, where they're going to want to control the clock, feed Fournette, it could work, man.
They have Keelan Cole and DJ Chark, who are both big, take the top off the defense kind of guys. Mm-hmm. So he would be a great fit there, D'Amato. I like that.
Here's where I'm going to I don't know how hot a take this is, but I actually like Houston a lot in this division. I think Deshaun Watson coming back, all indications are that he's going to be healthy to start the year. He was lighting it up, when he finally got to play his rookie year. I've been high on him, since high school, because he came out of the great state of Georgia and went to Clemson, of course, and won a national championship there. Came out very highly rated and kind of wowed guys with his talent last year on the field in his rookie year. Yeah, you got the ACL thing, but if he comes back and it plays even 90% with DeAndre Hopkins on the outside, J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney on the other side of the ball, I like Houston a lot in this division. I know I'm probably the high man of the three of us on them, but I like Houston a lot, not just in this division, but in the AFC in general this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a case to be made for that. So to me, Watson was incredible last year. They have a lot of, again, like the Steelers, but maybe worse, a lot of injury issues. Between Watson's ACL and then Clowney and Watt have both had a lot of trouble staying on the field. If they're fully healthy, I think they are probably the class of the division. Hopkins is phenomenal. He might be the best receiver in the whole NFL. But I think I like them. I think I worry that Watson set the bar too high almost. Mm-hmm. He was so good. I mean, he was the best quarterback in the league, really, when he was outside of New England, I guess. And when he was playing, and then he kind of got it's like they say about Kurt Cobain, that he died right at the right time before anyone saw the bat. He got hurt just in between, right in practice, right in the middle of his hot stretch, and he's looked a little shaky in the preseason. So he hasn't really, defenses haven't really had a chance to figure him out yet. Mm-hmm. So I think you could see a little bit of regression there. But Nick, I think that's very, very reasonable for them to come out of this division. This division, honestly, any one of the four teams could win it.
Yeah, I don't know about any of the four teams, but we'll get there. D'Amato, how are you seeing Houston in this division?
No, I'm with you. I like them as a wild card.
Okay.
Definitely to contend. Then again, like Roger said, if everybody gets hurt again, but then again, you can say that about any team. So
really, yeah.
But I look for them for healthy. I know with that strong defensive line, Marcellus, Watt, and Clowney, they could dominate any game. So I'm high on them too. And Watson, they definitely showed that he could lead a team before he got hurt.
Absolutely. You just said a minute ago, Raj, did you feel like any team in this division can win it? I know Andrew Luck is back. I don't think the Colts can win this division.
Me neither.
I love Andrew Luck. I have loved him since he came in the league when he's been on the field. But I think the Colts, since he's been in the league, have pretty much put one of the worst rosters in the league around him. Where when they win games, it is almost entirely on his shoulders to do so. And he just does not have any help. And I can't see them winning more than 6 or 7 games this year, honestly, even with him back.
Yeah, I mean, they would be the long shot. If he's the real Andrew Luck, then he's done it with less, frankly. Right. But coming back after not playing for a whole year, there's a good chance he's not, that he doesn't fully regain his form until next year.
Right.
But if he's the real Andrew Luck, they can. There's no team in this division that like jumps out that's going to go 13-3 or anything. Where it's not out of the realm of possibility for Andrew Luck to lead this team to 11-5 if he's the real Andrew Luck.
And they get a few breaks along the way. Yeah, I guess that could be possible, but I don't know, man. I got him sub 500 probably for me anyway. John,
and they do have that last place schedule.
They do. That's a great point. We don't talk about the schedules that much in the NFL because there's so much parity in the league, but the schedule can help a team. Like you mentioned earlier, Jacksonville had a last place schedule last year. They took advantage of it and had a great record and were able to make that run to the AFC title game. D'Amato, I know you kind of agreed with me on the Colts. I mean, what are you seeing out of them this year?
Not much. Just a couple more wins with Luck coming back, but this is just karma for a team that tanked to get two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and with their shenanigans, their owner, the GMs and their coaches are following their owner who couldn't get off the certain substances, and their drafting has just been horrific as far as getting an offensive line around Luck, and they have the worst front seven and probably in football. And along with their defensive backs who are nondescript, so I don't see much, but just the greatness of Luck will at least get them to 6 wins. But otherwise, they're no threat.
I got a shout out. Malik Hooker is going to be really good, but other than him, I agree.
All right, no, you can't go wrong with a hooker. So
I don't know. There are some hookers you can go wrong with. Maybe not Malik, but we'll see. The other team in this division we haven't talked about is a team that was a playoff team a year ago in Tennessee, and I just don't know what to make of these guys. Like, you watch Marcus Mariota, and there are times where he makes plays that just wow you, that just, jump off the screen at you, and then he makes plays where he looks like he's in his third game of his rookie season. Like, he's one of the most maddeningly inconsistent players in the league, and that should not be the case for a guy who's 4 years in at this point. Granted, they have Derrick Henry at running back, which is certainly going to help, but I don't like their receiving core a ton. I think their defense is kind of average. I have a hard time seeing them getting back to the playoffs again. I think last year was an anomaly for me anyway. I mean, what do you guys think?
I like Tennessee, especially Rabel's got the New England reputation, and also Malcolm Butler is coming in, and they already have one of the best secondaries in the league, and Malcolm Butler's going to make that. He's going to have something to prove after the last year's Super Bowl mystery, which was never uncovered by the esteemed New England press, who just takes Bill's word for whatever he says. So I think Butler's got something to prove this year.
I think they're good. I mean, I think this is a good team. You didn't mention, I mean, they do have Derrick Henry, but they brought in Deion Lewis, too, from the Patriots, so that gives them kind of a, fire and ice type of backfield there. And, I mean, what you said about Mariota is true. He did not have a very good year last year. He was 13 touchdowns and I think 15 picks. Mm-hmm. And they still made the playoffs.
Right.
I think he will be better than that this year. I think their coaching should be improved, hopefully. I'm not a huge Malarkey guy, honestly.
Oh, God. Hey, don't even get me started on Mike Malarkey.
Yeah, like John said, Vrabel, I mean, there's really nowhere to go but up. And, I think they're good. And I think Corey Davis, I mean, he went 5th overall, and he looked like he had those 2 touchdown catches in the playoffs. Like, I think he's the real deal at receiver, and they have a good defense. So,
all right. So you guys are a little bit higher on Tennessee. Then is it possible then that we could have three playoff teams out of the AFC South? It's rare for it to happen, but it sounds like you guys think there's at least a chance of that, getting both the wild cards out of this division.
Definitely.
Possible but unlikely.
Possible but unlikely. That's kind of where I am too. So let's go ahead and put it down. I think you guys are going Jaguars, but I'm going Texans for the division. Is that the case?
Yeah.
No, I think Tennessee's going to win the division.
Oh, all right. Tennessee. So we got Tennessee, a pick for Tennessee, a pick for Jacksonville, and a pick for Houston. I will say, however, I do think the Jaguars get a wild card coming out of this division. That's my first AFC wild card is Jacksonville. So let's hop over to the AFC West. And this division, man, I don't know what to make of it. I I can't get a good read on a lot of these teams. You know, you have the Chargers, who are almost always inconsistent. They seem to start slow every year and then turn it on late and make a run at the thing. You got Kansas City, who made the move to get rid of Alex Smith, to start Mahomes, and I think you're going to have some growing pains along the way. Denver now with Case Keenum. You know, what do you do there? And then, of course, the return of John Gruden to the NFL out in Oakland with Derek Carr. A lot of storylines in this division. The AFC West may be one of the most interesting divisions in the NFL this year. Where do you want to start, Raj? Where should we go with this AFC West talk?
Hey, let's start right at the bottom with John Gruden and the Raiders. How's that? At
the bottom? You think they finished last in this division?
Yes, by more than one game. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, they are. I can't believe they gave him what they gave him. The game has changed so much.
It has.
And I mean, he's already off to like a god-awful start. I mean, Khalil Mack is like their franchise player. He's the best player on their team. He's probably the best pass rusher in the NFL. And Gruden has decided that the best course of action with him is to just not even talk to him. They're not even talking to him. And now his holdout's going to go into the season. They say they want 2 first-round picks for him, but they gave themselves no leverage because they're not talking to him. And everybody knows that they have to either move him or he's just going to sit. So that's a terrible way to get started. I don't think the Gruden offense is going to be successful in the modern day NFL. I think Derek Carr is sneaky terrible. I can't say, there's not enough bad things I can say about this team.
You think Derek Carr is sneaky terrible? He was a leading MVP candidate 2 years ago before he goes down with the injury.
Yep, I think he was going to, But even that year, like if you look at the stats, Nick, like he started out strong and then tailed off and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
Right?
That's fair.
And then he had a hot half a season against the, not to bring up the schedule again, but they had sucked the year before, and he had some serious weapons around him too. I mean, Cooper, for all the drop passes, is a real talented kid, and Crabtree is very talented. So we'll see. I might be wrong, but I think the bloom's off the rose. I think Carr and Gruden are both gone within 2 years. That's my prediction.
Wow. Not high thoughts from Raj on the return of John Gruden to the NFL. Yeah, the thing is, they were a playoff team and a top seed in the AFC. I don't remember what exactly their seed was a couple of years ago. And they still have a lot of those guys hanging around. Now, if Khalil Mack is traded or doesn't come in and is disgruntled all year and is not completely focused, then obviously that changes things, but I can't pick them to go last in the division. I do have them third though in this division. I think it'll take John Gruden some time to figure this team out, to get reacclimated to the game, but I think they can get back close to that level they were a couple of years ago. So we'll see. D'Amato,
they were healthy last year.
Yeah, they were.
And they were and he was just awful.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But you bring in, does the Marshawn Lynch acquisition make any difference? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, he played for him last year. I mean, he's a good back, but he's 30-something years old, and he just wants to. I love beast mode, but he is not going to be the difference between winning and losing. He's if his name wasn't Marshawn Lynch at this point, he would be just another guy. Good point.
D'Amato, how are you seeing the Raiders this year?
I'm about as low on them as the Cowboy is.
Wow. Okay.
I wouldn't call Derek Carr. I wouldn't call Derek Carr sneaky terrible, but he took a huge step back last year. Mm-hmm. So he has to get back up to the level he was the year before, or he's going to go to the junkyard of mediocre quarterbacks. And their defense was very soft last year, even with Khalil Mack. Their defensive backs are amongst the lowest rated in football. So, and they didn't really add too many dynamic players. I mean, Jordy Nelson and. Like you guys said, they get a Lynch. What is this? The over 30 squad. So
with John Gruden as coach.
Yeah. Gruden bringing his style, his faces from 20 years ago. So yeah, I'm about as low on them as the Cowboy. I would have them for last too.
See, the only thing that keeps me from picking them last is I am not high on Case Keenum in going to Denver. Like, I don't like their skill guys. I think they still haven't figured out the running back position. They got some pieces on defense. They still have Demaryius Thomas there, yeah, but I think if you're expecting Case Keenum to walk in the door and play just as well this year as he did for Minnesota last year, I'm not buying it. And I think that was lightning in a bottle. I don't know that you can replicate that. So that's where I'm at with Denver. I have them last and Oakland right ahead of them.
So I don't think Case Keenum is going to be the world beater he was last year, but all he's got to do is be better than Trevor Siemian.
That's true.
Denver had literally the worst quarterback in the league last year. And that defense is really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, they Von Miller and they signed Chubb for all intents and purposes, like the best player in the draft, right? I mean, he didn't go number one because of his position, but I mean, he's a stud. And I mean, I think they're good at the skill position. Emmanuel Sanders is still very good. Cortland Sutton has looked great in the preseason. And Royce Freeman, the rookie running back, has looked great.
That's probably the most important one. They got to get some consistency at that running back position because that's been their philosophy is to pound the ball a little bit. And if you can't do that and help take some of the pressure off Case Keenum, it could be a long year for them.
Yeah, and I mean they have Booker too. He sucks, but
yeah.
I mean he's a body. But I think that defense can keep them in games. And if Keenum is just reasonably competent, then I mean the defense isn't all that dissimilar to the defense that won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago with Peyton Manning, the arm strength less than mine. I mean, really, I mean, is Keenum worse than him? I mean, he was putrid.
Right.
So I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I think they're headed very clearly a better team than the Raiders. Very, very clearly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with the Cowboy again. This division is so mediocre. So what stands out as far as units out of all the teams? What stands out is Kansas City's explosive offense. Their receivers with Kelsey and Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill. And another thing that stands out is what Roger said. Denver's defenses. They could take over any game. And Keenum's going to have something to prove. Minnesota told him to screw off after he had his career year. And he's got those two great weapons, and the defense could keep him in any game. So I actually like the Broncos to take this division.
Wow. Okay, division champs. That's interesting. I think the conventional pick that a lot of people are going with, though, it seems like it's the Chargers. The way they finished last year, Phillip Rivers just continues to put up big numbers, even if the Chargers disappoint sometimes. And a lot of people look at him with Melvin Gordon, and they say that it's going to be the Chargers. What do you guys think about that conventional wisdom that the Chargers are taking this division?
I mean, I can see it, and it's less about. I mean, their offense has been very similar to how it's. I don't think their offense is going to be much different than what it has been. I mean, it's Rivers, Gordon, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams looks like he might make some noise, but they lost Hunter Henry. So, but I think that the people are picking them based on their defense. With Bosa and Ingram and the cornerback. I can't believe I don't have his name on the tip of my Casey Hayward. It's a good defense, but just something about the Chargers, and this isn't hard-hitting analysis or anything,
right?
But I just can't see them. I just think they're going to somehow go 9-7. I just think it's what's going to happen.
I think
it always happens. I think that's what's going to happen.
Right. It dates back to the old Schottenheimer days when it felt like there was a long period of time where they had one of the best rosters in football and couldn't get out of the first round of the playoffs. And it feels like they've never really escaped that label of underachievers. So I like them for a wild card out of this division, but I don't like them to win it. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going with the Chiefs to win this division. I'm buying in. I'm all in on Patrick Mahomes. He's going to make some boneheaded mistakes. I understand that. But the kid might have the most arm talent of any quarterback in the league. That throw he made in the second week of the preseason where he was kind of throwing against his body, 70 yards on a rope downfield, nobody else in the league makes that throw. There are going to be guys who most people would consider to be out of range. He is going to make so many plays this year that nobody else can make. I think it offsets the turnovers, and I think it adds an element of explosiveness to that Kansas City offense that was missing with Alex Smith at the helm. So Tyreek Hill is going to have a big year now that Pat Mahomes is throwing the ball to him.
Yeah, those weapons are going to make up for a lot of his rookie mistakes with Kareem Hunt and Spencer Ware backing him up, and Tariq Hill and Kelsey and Ed Watkins.
Sammy Watkins, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so it's going to make up for a lot of the rookie mistakes.
Yeah, and I mean, and Andy Reid is an offensive genius.
Right.
He really is. And I mean, I would look at it this way. If Mahomes is any good at all, you couldn't be put in a better position to succeed.
Right.
I mean, it's the best, outside of maybe St. Louis, it's the best skill guys in the NFL. Great coach. So I think, you know, Nick, you made a Brett Favre comment earlier. I think Mahomes, that's what Reid sees, is that gunslinger with a huge arm who's not afraid to take shots. And you're seeing that, and he's going to throw some picks, but I do agree, Nick, that they're the class of this division, and they're going to win it.
Gotcha. So you got me and you with the Chiefs. We got D'Amato saying Denver. What about wild cards out of this division? You guys see any coming out of here? I'm going to say the Chargers grab another wild card this year.
I think Denver would be a wild card up here.
Okay, got it. Well, that's our AFC talk. So we're going to actually take a break right here in the middle of the show. And when we come back, we're going to dive into the NFC. We're going to talk about D'Amato's Giants and my Falcons on the other side of the break. Stick with us. We will be right back.
Paid for by the following. Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which, of course, includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place of Nations, JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceOfNation.com. We offer them to you on two great feeds. On the Place of Nation Wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, along with Main Event, Survey Says, the Monday Night Wars, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction show, as well as Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver special network podcasts and pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Match of the Week podcast, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Through the Years, Worldcast, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Center Stage, and Letters from Kayfabe, plus much more. And on our very popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as Talkin' Pop, the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, NBA Team, PTBN Play, Sunday Groove, Breaking Balls, and Lucha Undead.
As well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans.
With the Hard Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversations, Geek and Sassy, and Marvel Age podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows, plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback today. All these shows, plus others, available at PlayStation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlayStation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, and thehistoryofwrestling.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlayStation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hi there. Have you recently gone through a crisis? Did you find out your friends had been lying to you for years to cover up something they did? Have you discovered that one of your bitter enemies might actually be 3 people? Were you seemingly killed by a new god only to find yourself quantum leaping through time until you make it back to the present? Was your entire reality wiped out in a cosmic battle between two godlike beings only to be reborn, destroyed, and reborn again? Then join me, Russell Sellers, and my special guests as we help you manage your post-crisis life in DC Post-Crisis Management, a limited monthly series starting in September. We can't promise you closure, but we will try to avoid destroying your hometown and turning you into a homicidal maniac who wipes out time.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the NFL preview show here on the Place to Be Nation Sports Network on Place to Be Nation Pop. And I'll just say Place to Be Nation a few more times as if the names weren't convoluted enough already. Much like we did for the AFC, we're going to go through here alphabetically through the divisions in the NFC. And we're going to start it off in the NFC East. And John, I know you've been waiting for this. Are the G-Men ready to make a big comeback this year?
Well, anything compared to the monstrosity that was last year, 3-13, would be a comeback. So I will guarantee that they will be improved from last year. But as far as division or wild card, there's going to be a new coach and a lot of new additions, and plus the offensive line has destroyed this team for the past 5 years. And from what little I've seen, you can't take too much out of preseason, but from what I see, the offensive line has made a little bit of an improvement, but it's still not enough. It still looks like a bottom 5 offensive line, which has just crushed this franchise. It's really destroyed. It got rid of the GM and a coach. So I think they're going to fall a little short. We're looking at an 8-8 or 9-7, unfortunately.
Wow.
But at least it's a step up. I shouldn't say unfortunately. It's a step up. It's a step in the right direction. But and there is optimism, though, to see what Saquon Barkley can do.
Yeah, I'm super high on Saquon Barkley. I thought he was right there in terms of the best players in the draft. I understand all the arguments for not taking a running back number 1. I get that because they're kind of replaceable in today's NFL. But I think he's as gifted a running back as has come out of the draft in a long time. I think he's going to be great, eventually. Like you said, got to fix the offensive line, but with OBJ there to take the top off the defense, should be a lot of running room open for Saquon here in his rookie year. So I'm excited to see what he does. And I think the Giants could be a lot better than they were a year ago for sure. I think they can get up there back to that 8-9 win range, kind of like you said. Raj, how do you see the Giants?
I really like what they've done. Barkley, I think what makes Barkley worth it at that number 2 pick is how good he is out of the backfield, which is catching the ball out of the backfield, which is really helpful when you have a shitty offensive line to be able to dump it off to a guy. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. We talk about the skill position guys with Kansas City, and they said St. Louis. The Giants are right there with anybody, with Beckham, Shepard, and Evan Ingram's a really good tight end. Yep. Their schedule, for whatever reason, is brutal. For a 3-13 team, you guys can never catch a break tomorrow. I'm going to read you their first 7 games. Yeah. Home for Jacksonville, at Dallas, at Houston, home for New Orleans, at Carolina, home for Philadelphia, at Atlanta. I mean, that's literally all playoff teams except for the Cowboys, and they're going to Dallas. So that's a really tough way to start the season for a team that finished 3-13.
That's just a bad draw on the rotation because they get the NFC South that had 3 playoff teams a year ago, and they get the AFC South, which we just talked about on the first half of the show, has the potential at least to have 3 playoff teams this year. So, I mean, they get 2 of the deepest divisions top to bottom in the NFL on the schedule draw. So.
Yeah, right. Why couldn't we get the AFC South when Luck was hurt?
But really, I mean, their success is going to hinge on Eli. He doesn't have to be great,
right?
But he has to be decent.
Can't turn the ball over a ton the way
he's got the guys around him to be decent, but there's an argument you can make that he's completely cooked and over the hill.
Right.
We're going to find out this year. So if he's serviceable, I think that they're capable. They're capable of making the playoffs, but probably fall in 9-7. If he's like the Eli we've seen the last few years, I think they'll probably bench him mid-season and maybe one more down year before the future looks brighter.
They probably have to address the quarterback position in the offseason either way, right? Even if he's fine this year, you got to start trying to find a guy to be the next guy.
I think they like Davis Webb a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's why they didn't draft a quarterback. They liked Webb, but they showed when everything was going correctly that Eli could still get it done. When the offensive line on those rare occasions when they blocked for him, but there was just a few games last year where Eric Flowers was just a turnstile, and it was just a disaster. Where he made a Hall of Fame out of Ziggy Ansah in Detroit, was just escorting him to the quarterback about 5 straight plays. So there's really not much that Eli could do. But they're basing their decision to go with Eli for another year was based on the 2 Philly games where the Super Bowl champions barely beat the Giants, and Eli had 2 of his best games. And also, if you remember, the last playoff game was a disaster as far as all the receivers dropped the passes and the defense broke down and was giving up Hail Marys. But the only one that played well in that playoff game was Green Bay, was Eli. He was throwing darts that day. So
that is true.
He showed that he still got it, but unfortunately he can't do it by himself. But if everything's working around him, he could still get it done. So we'll see.
And you mentioned right there the defending world champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, who obviously I think are the conventional pick to probably win this division. Now, granted, they have a little bit of a question mark with Carson Wentz. When's he going to be cleared? When's he going to be ready to go? But Nick Foles had such a magical, end of the season last year that it's hard to bet against him. But, we've seen Nick Foles have great runs before and then come crashing back down to earth. Do we think that Nick Foles is going to kind of come back down to normal, to regress a little bit this year compared to what he was a year ago?
They need Wentz back as quickly as possible.
Right.
Foles was awful until the playoffs. That game, it was week 16. I don't know if you guys remember. It was Raiders-Eagles on Monday Night Football. And it was the worst game I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was just awful. Foles and Carr just took turns, trying to out-terrible the other guy. And I think the score was 10-7. Foles was really bad, and he's looked really bad in the preseason. He got hot in the playoffs, but they absolutely can't have him. If he's their quarterback for more than 3 weeks, I mean, they're done. He's not a real NFL quarterback, I don't think.
Wow. Hot take there. So you're saying if he's not back, if Wentz isn't back by week 4, you don't think they can make the playoffs?
That's what I'm saying. Yes,
wow.
I think he's probably going to play week 1, and I think he should, even if he's not quite 100%.
Yeah, they've kind of been cagey about that. They keep saying he's not cleared for contact, and Doug Peterson has said that if he's not ready to go by, I think by game week, which of course will have started by the time people are listening to this podcast, then he's going to go with Foles. So we'll see if Wentz plays week 1 or not.
There's real potential for this team to take a step back, I think.
It kind of felt like they were a year early, didn't it? Like it just seemed like this was supposed to be the year, the third year of Carson Wentz kind of taking that big leap forward, and it feels like they kind of got it, made that jump a year early. So I guess it's possible, but
all credit to him. I mean, if you're going to make the jump, you win the Super Bowl, absolutely. But
right.
Jeffrey might not be right until week 6, and I mean they don't have a whole lot else at receiver. They haven't looked good in the preseason.
Not. Well, they turned the ball over 6 times the other night, I think.
Yeah, and personnel-wise, I mean, if you look at their roster, personnel-wise, it doesn't really jump off the page. It was a team effort last year, and I mean that happens. And it was they were a very, very good team, and their defense was good. Yeah. But it did. They caught lightning in a bottle with Foles in the playoffs, and I mean I think they had a lot of that, the intangible stuff of nobody believes in nobody gave them a chance to out across the board. But it strikes me as a team that may be reading a little bit of their press clippings, and we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they're going to go under 500.
Wow. D'Amato, how are you seeing it?
No, I think the Eagles definitely repeat as division champs, strictly because their offensive line and their defensive front seven are amongst the best in football, and they totally dominated the whole playoffs. They totally dominated the Vikings championship game, and then they dominated the Patriots. So it was one of those rare years where it showed. Where usually once your quarterback goes down, your season's over. But once every 10 to 15 years, as the Giants proved with Jeff Hassett, and if you have dominant units like the Eagles' offensive line and the defensive front seven, that they could do it, and they kept most of their guys. And they're still so for the first week is pretty much is looking good for the Falcons. And then after that, they got the Bucks, Colts, and Titans. So most likely, Wentz will probably be back for the Bucks, Colts, and Titans. And if they could get 3 out of 4, they'll be on their way.
So I mean, I don't want to be a homer, but to say that their defensive line dominated the Super Bowl is a little crazy. They made a sack. I mean, that was about it.
Brandon Graham made the play. Yeah. No, I was talking more the Vikings game, Roger. The offensive line dominated the Super Bowl, and the defensive line dominated the Vikings the championship game.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Maybe I misspoke and said both, but whatever. But in general, they dominated.
Yeah, I'm high on them again this year. I think they're going to be good. I think Wentz will come back. The only thing that concerns you is this ACL rehabilitation seems to be taking longer than a lot of guys who've had ACLs recently. ACLs used to be, you questioned if they were ever going to be able to be the same guy again, and now, pretty much since Adrian Peterson, it feels like you can be back in 9 months. And the fact that Wentz isn't back yet, a little weird, but we'll see how it goes. Like you said, Raj, getting Alshon Jeffrey back healthy will be the big thing. But the schedule is manageable to start. If they can just kind of keep their head above water to week 5, week 6, stay about 500, then I think they can make a run in this division, because I don't see anybody else that really is going to just going to run away with it in the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season. So
and I think it's the worst division in football again. I think 9-7. I think 9-7 might win the division.
So 2 teams we haven't talked about real quick. Let's head a little bit south of Philly and let's look at Washington. Alex Smith comes over, taking over for Kirk Cousins, who, of course, departed to Minnesota. Around him, I don't really know that they have a team capable of Alex Smith being able to just stand back there and game manage the way he did in Kansas City and get their way to wins. I don't know. I'm not high on Washington. I'm not high on the Alex Smith acquisition. What do you guys see for the Redskins this year?
They took a big hit. That's why the winners of the preseason, if you can get through the preseason without any major injuries, and they're really relying on Grice, and that was a big loss for them to take over their running game.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a believer in AP?
I mean,
you never know. He could bring some back, and Chris Thompson is no slouch too. But they were really Grice looked like a dynamic pick that they could plug in there and kind of be like a Gurley type. So. And Cousins for Smith, we'll see how that shakes out. But I think it's going to be a step back. Alex Smith is more of a game manager, and this team isn't really dominant enough where they could rely on a game manager to win games for them. The defensive front seven is soft, and the defensive backs, even with Josh Norman, hasn't really turned them into a dominant defense. He should stay with Carolina. So we're looking at 5-6 wins for Washington.
I think they'll be a little better than that. DJ Swearinger will hurt people, at least. But on offense, I agree. I don't think Smith is as good as Cousins, but I think their personnel is good for Smith's game, provided they're healthy again. But, Crowder's their best receiver, and he's a slot guy, a lot of shorter routes. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Chris Thompson, who's one of the better pass receiving backs in the league. And Jordan Reed is the big wild card. When he's healthy, I mean, he's a phenomenal tight end.
Yeah, he's a beast. Yeah.
And Smith loves the tight end. I mean, but Jordan Reed is so rarely healthy. Mm-hmm. I think they're a team that could surprise, and if things were to shake out with the division being awful, could sneak in. But it's tough to see them winning more than 8 or 9 games.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to D'Amato on the 6 or 7, but we'll see how it turns out. And then the part that Scott Crisolo has been waiting for, what about the Cowboys? No more Dez, of course, no more Jason Witten, which I think is a big deal for Dak. when Dak is trying to run around and make plays, not having that safety valve of Jason Witten anymore, I think that's going to make a big difference. Offensive line's still good. Ezekiel Elliott's still good. Defensively, they're trying to get better. That was really what held them back a year ago. I don't know. I still look at them and I see an 8 or 9 win team. I think they're probably the closest to challenging the Eagles for the division, but I think the Eagles are better than them. I flat out think they're 2 to 3 games better than them.
I think that it's been a really bad offseason for the Cowboys. I know you mentioned that their line is good, but their line, like Zach Martin's hurt, Travis Frederick has Julian Barr syndrome and might not play this year. The line's kind of in shambles, honestly, and that's the thing that set this team apart and was the strength of their team is this, legendary offensive line. That if the line's only average, I think it's a 4 or 5 win team. I mean, they're gonna ride Zeke into the ground, and he's a great player, but they have nothing at receiver at all. Allen Hurns is their number one. Dak, I like Dak. He's a bit of a game manager too. I think he has the ability to be good, but I think he's not going to win games for you on his own. It's just not the kind of guy he is. And their defense, I know that Randy Gregory will get back from suspension, but who the hell knows how long that'll last. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have Sean Lee, but their defense really isn't very good at all. Their defense was bad last year. Like I could see them really bottoming out this year, 3-13, 4-12.
Wow, that bad, huh? D'Amato, how are you seeing the Cowboys?
No, I'm a little higher on them. I think I don't think their defense was as bad as Roger says. I disagree with it. I think DeMarcus Lawrence took a step up, and Irving, their front seven, was close to above average, as opposed to past. And as far as their offensive line goes, Frederick, their center, that's a big loss. That's a huge loss. But if he's the only one, and if Martin and the other guys stay healthy, they could get back to the dominant offensive line. But they showed how tenuous that is. Last year, you saw it up close, Nick, where what they call it, the burning of Atlanta when they lost.
When Adrian Claiborne went off for 5 sacks in one game. Yeah.
So that's how tenuous their position is. But when they dominate, if they get that offensive line dominating again, and they're very high on Gallup as a receiver, and Beasley's a good little slot receiver. So they can hang in there. I think they can hang in there for 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah, Adrian Claiborne got his performance bonus for 5 sacks and got it in one game.
The burning of Atlanta,
It was nuts watching that performance last year. And then, of course, he parlays that into a contract with the freaking Patriots. So there you are.
We're happy to have him, Nick.
Yeah, I bet you are. Division-wise, it sounds like, Rod, you're not as high on Philadelphia as D'Amato and I are. I'm picking them to win the division. Where are you going in this division? Giants, wow. All right, D'Amato, and you're sticking with the Eagles to win it?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Moving on to the NFC North. This is the other team that was in the NFC title game a year ago, the defending champion Minnesota Vikings. They made the big splash in the offseason, finally getting Kirk Cousins out of Washington, where he had been discontent, to say the least, for a while. And now he gets a lot of guaranteed money to come over to Minnesota that's got skill players around him. You got Dalvin Cook coming back off the knee injury. You've got Adam Thielen there at receiver. A lot of pieces to surround Kirk Cousins, and a great defense kind of have Minnesota in that role of a trendy Super Bowl pick for a lot of people. How are you guys seeing the Vikings with Kirk Cousins compared to where they were a year ago with Case Keenum?
I don't see that much of an improvement, to be honest. And all it's going to depend on their offensive line. I was really disappointed in their offensive line's performance versus the Eagles in that championship. It looked like they had the Eagles ripe and they were ready to be the first team to have a home Super Bowl, and their offensive line just deteriorated. And I don't see Cousins as being much of an upgrade from Keenum. And I think they're going to take a step back because they're going to be missing Pat Shermer, who was the coordinator of the year last year, And obviously he's moved on to better things as coach of the NYG. So I think they're going to take a step back, adjust into a new quarterback and a new offense.
Wow.
I'm with you, D'Amato. So you said the trendy picnic, and if I remember last year going into the season, the trendy pick for the Super Bowl was the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's just in the NFL, like there's so much parity that it doesn't take much to move things, right? And I do like Cousins. I think what D'Amato mentioned about their offensive line is very valid. I don't think it's not a good offensive line. They're loaded at the skill positions, absolutely. But they were really lucky to be in that game with the Eagles. They hit the miracle play of all miracle plays, right? To be in that game, and then to just get whacked like that as favorites, I feel like that hurts. That's a tough thing to come back from. So on paper, I think that they look good, but I think they'll take a step back. I definitely don't think they'll make the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm a little higher than you guys are, but I think they do take a slight step back. Because, look at them last year. They were, the 2 seed in the NFC? I don't think they're a legit Super Bowl contender. Like D'Amato said, the change in offense, I think it's going to take some time for Cousins to fully acclimate, and then maybe in 2019 they're able to really get back to contending. But I actually look at this division, and I'm... Greg, my best friend Greg Phillips will tell you that I'm notorious for doing this every year because I am just in love with the guy, but I gotta pick Green Bay to win this division because I think they have, when he's healthy, the best player in the league in Aaron Rodgers. I think Jimmy Graham moving over, I know he was a little bit of a disappointment in Seattle, but I think that provides Aaron Rodgers with a big-time red zone weapon. I like a lot of the things about the Packers. Yeah, they're going to be limited defensively. They've been that way virtually Rodgers' entire career, but I think the offense is going to be so good that it won't matter. I love the Packers in this division.
I'm with you. Definitely. Jimmy Graham, you hit it, you nailed it, man. And he's not going to miss Jordy Nelson. Jimmy Graham's going to have a big time year. And the only thing I would worry about is Rodgers. The same injury twice. Is he going to be? Is he going to have like the Tony Romo syndrome with the clavicle if he takes a hit on that? That'll be something to worry about. But it looks like the Pack. Their defense has been soft the past few years, but their front seven. They got. Let's see if Muhammad Wilkerson wants to play. He blew it with the Jets. He was at a Pro Bowl level for a couple of years, and then he got money and he stopped playing. So. We'll see if he gets rejuvenated down in Green Bay. But I like them, too, to take the division for a lot of the same reasons you said, Nick.
And one thing that we haven't talked about is that play that Aaron Rodgers was injured on last year. We've seen it now in the preseason. They're calling that as a penalty. Defenders can no longer drive quarterbacks into the ground. Now, whatever that means, what the definition of that is, I can't define it for you because I don't think the officials or the league can define it for you. But we've seen some questionable calls coming out here. It seems like quarterbacks are going to be protected more than they ever have before, which is saying something given the way the rules in the game have changed over the last 10 to 20 years. Raj, we kind of talked about falling over the Packers. How are you seeing Green Bay this year?
Yeah, when you have Rodgers, you're always in contention. I don't think this specific team around him is any better than some of the other teams around him. But if he's healthy for 16 games, I think they do win the division.
There you go.
I think there's a big difference between like the top two and the other two as far as a chance to win the division. Wouldn't you guys say as far as definitely like nobody's going to be picking Detroit or Chicago, and everybody's going to be picking either Green Bay or Minnesota. I think there's such a big difference between the 2 and 2.
I would agree with that. Although I think Detroit and Minnesota are closer than people think. You got to remember Detroit was a playoff team not that long ago, and Stafford. Inconsistent, yeah, but Kenny Golladay has impressed in the preseason. You got Marvin Jones, or I believe it is there. You got some.
I'm not high on Detroit at all, so especially with their coach Patricia, who's
that's a good point.
He got that pencil rammed right up the wazoo in the Super Bowl, and his defense couldn't stop anybody. So I don't see how he's going to do as a head coach. I'm not confident in him.
Yeah, we'll see. I think they're 8-8, maybe somewhere in that 7-9 to 9-7 range is kind of where I have Detroit.
It's a good division.
Right.
Detroit, like I mean, they're like you said, Nick. I mean, Stafford is, he's a top 10 guy, and he's got weapons around him. I think their offense is going to be good. Mm-hmm. I mean, their defense, to D'Amato's point, in theory, Patricia's a defensive coach, but if you look at their defensive personnel, it doesn't exactly jump off the page. So, and I don't think Patricia's any kind of miracle worker, being from New England here, but. One thing Stafford does do, he tends to win games that they shouldn't win. Mm-hmm. So if he's captain comeback in the fourth quarter. So if they can win, steal a couple, they could go 10-6. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility at all. But their talent level is probably an 8-8.
Yeah, I think we all agree, to a varying degrees anyway, on Detroit. I think there's some issues there. We agree on the top two. We probably agree on Chicago too. I still don't like the Mitch Trubisky pick from last year. I watched him play some in college, was never that impressed by him. I don't think he was the number one guy. They've still got limitations all around them. The offensive line is not great. I like Tariq Cohen a lot. But defensively, we'll see. Yeah, they got my boy Roquan Smith coming in to anchor the middle, and I think he will be good. But the defense surrounding him, I don't know, man. I think the Bears are the clear bottom dwellers of this division again.
So, I think there is some potential here for what happened in St. Louis last year. I don't know what you guys think of Nagy, but I think he's a real good offensive mind. He's going to have them playing at a fast pace. If you look at their personnel, Trey Burton they brought in from Philly is, I think, a real deal tight end, and they're using him a lot in the preseason. And they brought in Allen Robinson, who's a true number one receiver, and they have a good Anthony Miller, the rookie, is a real good slot guy, and they have a great two-headed running back in Howard and Cohen. So, offensively, I could see Nagy's a Chip Kelly disciple, and I can see them playing with pace. And I don't think I think just like it was unfair to judge Goff based on his first year with Fisher. You can say the exact same thing about Trubisky last year. It was a no hope vanilla offense with a dinosaur. I think they have the. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think the possibility is there that they could really, really surprise people. Okay, interesting. D'Amato, how are you seeing it?
Best case scenario for the Bears would be 8 wins. They do have some young talent, and their defensive backs are impressive. They got some and Howard and Cohen, just like what I just said. But I'm not really confident in their receivers though to get to that level, that Rams level offense. I don't see anything dynamic out of their receivers unless these guys that they added are surprised. But
Allen Robinson was a really good player. I mean, he had 14 touchdowns 2 years ago.
Yeah. So, to win the division, I think D'Amato and I both said the Packers. Raj, are you there with us as well? Packers?
I'm going to pick the Packers.
Okay, but
if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, and if he's healthy, they'll win the division.
And I've actually got Minnesota grabbing a wild card out of this division. You guys got any wild cards out of this one?
No.
All right. So let's hop down, I should say, to the NFC South, where my Falcons, of course, reside. And we are still feeling the heartbreak from 2 years ago. So get all your requisite 28-3 jokes out of your system. Go ahead, take a minute, laugh, and now we'll move on.
I'm not that kind of guy, Nick.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about other individuals who are out there. We will not name names. Anyway, Falcons-wise, it's hard to tell. I think talent-wise, they have the potential to win the division. It all comes down to whether Steve Sarkisian can get his head out of his ass, not call terrible play calls, such as the one that ended their season last year on the goal line in Philadelphia, where they had, the team that wound up winning the title dead to rights inside the 10-yard line, and ran one of the worst fourth down play calls I've ever seen in my life.
They handed it to Taylor Gabriel? Was that one?
No, this is the one where they rolled to one side, and so Matt Ryan only had a half-field read and threw a bad fade to Julio Jones. It was terrible. Just terrible. But I
think it was against the Pats that they ran the reverse to Gabriel on the goal line.
Yeah. I mean, they used to run that reverse to Gabriel. That was a staple of the Shanahan offense back then. But defensively, that's the thing nobody talks about the Falcons is they've been young on defense for a while now, and they are steadily getting better. Deion Jones is a star in the making in the middle of that defense. Desmond Trufant's been underrated for a long time. Vic Beasley finally moving back to defensive end after the failed outside linebacker experiment should make him a lot better. Grady Jarrett continues to be underrated in the middle. I like the defense a lot. If Sarkisian can, figure something out and get that offense back to a top 10 level, not even a top 5 level, they've got every chance in the world to win this division. I know everybody looks at the Saints. The Saints bring a lot back, but nobody has gone back-to-back in this division in a long time. It seems like there's a new team on top every year, it seems like. So, hard to say. I'll go out on a limb. I'll say Sarkisian pulls it together, and the Falcons barely win this division, but it's going to be right down to the wire with them, New Orleans, and Carolina again.
Yeah, the division reminds me a lot of the AFC West, where you have, three teams who can legitimately win it. And I think you could see 2 wild cards out of this division. I think that this is your best chance in the NFL for that to happen. I like the Falcons. They seem to really miss Shanahan, like you said.
God.
I mean, and that's really it, because the skill guys are there. I mean, they've even brought in Calvin Ridley, who's another very, very good skill guy. The defense, to your point, is young and improving, and there's such a fine line with those 3 teams. They're all good teams, and it's, 2 or 3 plays and games that's going to make the difference. So I think it rests squarely on Sarkisian, like you said.
Right. D'Amato, what do you see in the ATL?
This division is the best division in football, and I'm not just sucking up to the host. I'm going to take you off the ledge, Nick. For the teams that usually lose the Super Bowl usually have a disastrous next season.
Yeah.
And your boys won a playoff game, and they should have beat the Super Bowl champs. So,
I'm fully aware. Yeah.
So you had a very good follow up to losing the Super Bowl, which if you go in the history of teams that lost the Super Bowl, the most of them didn't even make the playoffs. Right. So you should be very confident. And look at all the units on Atlanta. What is like a weakness? Maybe like the front 7 is mediocre, but otherwise every other unit is in the top 10 of football. So you got a well-rounded squad that should be primed to become the first team ever to host the Super Bowl.
Still got a question mark at right guard. There's been a battle in the offseason between Fusco, who came over from the Niners, and Wes Schweitzer, who wasn't very good a year ago. So, I mean, the offensive line's got some questions. The secondary, I think, you got to find a corner opposite Trufant. And I think Keanu Neal, who's been a really good player his first 2 years, that new helmet rule might be a big deal for him this year, because he has developed a reputation as an enforcer in the secondary. And if they call it super tight, he might be getting hit with fines left and right, which would not be good. But the other team that I think a lot of people think is the primary competition in this division is the defending division champs, the New Orleans Saints, who finally seem to have gotten their act together defensively, which was the one thing holding that team back for so long. But then in the offseason, they get popped with the Mark Ingram suspension. Yeah, you got Alvin Kamara there, who's all-world for sure, but I think part of his success was due in large part to the fact they were able to alternate those 2 guys as a tandem, kind of that thunder and lightning type approach. And without Mark Ingram those first 4 games, I think that could hurt the Saints, and they stumble out of the gate a little bit, which could make all the difference in a really tight division.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're going to use Kamara the same way, in my opinion. It's not as though they're going to start giving him 25 carries a game because Ingram's out. They have Jonathan Williams, who looks decent. He looks pretty good for the Bills. I think they can piece together 4 games of I mean, what Ingram really is for them is like a, early down kind of banger. And I think they can piece that together for 4 games. And I think Kamara will get even more work out of the backfield, catching the ball in those 4 games. But, I mean, this is a good team. Mm-hmm. They're loaded on offense, and Breeze, hasn't seemed to age a day, really. I mean, he's still fantastic. They have a really good offensive line. And to your point, their defense was good last year. And Marshawn Lattimore is like a shutdown corner. you just worry the way that they lost that game to Minnesota. You have to hope that doesn't carry over, because that's about as badly a bad a way to lose a game as you can have, with Williams missing that tackle. But Cam Jordan is a really good player on the defense. I think these guys are going to win the division.
Gotcha. What about you?
I got him as a wild card, along with the Panthers. I got 2 wild cards coming out of this division.
Okay.
It's the best in football, but with the Saints, their offensive line is tremendous. One of the best, if not the best, along with Dallas, as long as they stay healthy enough in football. And they could dominate, and they'll get away without Ingram for the first 4 games. And like you said, Raj, that's going to be big how they come back from that devastating loss last year. And we'll see, because October 28th, Sunday night at Vikings, they're going to be replaying that play 1,062 times. And hopefully Lattimore gets through that week. And but they should be all right. They could easily win this division.
And may I just say, I hope that return trip for them to the site of their most embarrassing defeat goes just as well as the Falcons' return to New England went last year. So let's hope that's what happens on Sunday Night Football in that game. The other team, I think, and you talked about him, D'Amato, I think you got him as a wild card. The Panthers. Yep. Cam Newton every year, he's gonna be a guy who can carry a team, put a team on his back. They made the Kelvin Benjamin move, last year during the season. He's no longer there, but they go out and draft DJ Moore in the first round to kind of replace that, to add some more pop to that offense. Luke Kuechly defensively is good. Christian McCaffrey coming back for his second year at running back. I like a lot of the things the Panthers have done, but the division is just so good, it makes you wonder, can they play with the New Orleans and Atlantas of the world? I think that the margin between these 3 teams is razor thin. I like the Panthers a lot. I think they can win 9, 10, maybe even 11 games and still get shut out of the playoffs because of the division they play in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with everything you said. We kind of know what they are. I mean, they're one of the few teams in the league where I think we really know what they are, and you kind of know what you're going to get as long as Cam's out there. So, I mean, they're a 10, 11 win team. I'm with D'Amato. I have 2 wild cards in this division with them in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we haven't mentioned Ron Rivera has established himself as one of the best coaches. His teams are always ready to play, and they're a threat every year. They're in every game, and they're well coached, and they got players. They could easily take the division and then make a Super Bowl run. And also, they got North Turner's coming back to run the offense, and everywhere he goes is pretty successful. So.
And they score touchdowns. That's the thing that Cam really gives you.
Yeah,
they don't, when they're inside the 10, they don't settle for field goals.
No. He's just so hard to bring down. I mean, he's gonna, with that running threat.
And he picks his shots. He doesn't run wild all game, but when the money's on the line and then he sees the end zone, he goes for it.
Yep. Touchdowns and first downs. He's great at it. I mean, I hate the guy with an undying passion, but I can't deny that he's great at it.
No, you got to respect him. But we haven't even mentioned Tampa, and then for a 4th place team, though, they're pretty solid. If it wasn't for Knucklehead Winston's suspension to start off the year, they would have a shot at it too. I wouldn't be surprised if they make some upsets this year.
Oh, I mean, definitely they're gonna beat somebody in the division that they have no, they're not gonna go 0-6 in the division. Put it that way. They're gonna beat, win 1 or 2 games in the division that are gonna hurt those 3 teams, like we said, who are battling it out for that playoff spot. But like you said, Jameis not being there the first few games, I think hurts. Even though Ryan Fitzpatrick is fine, but I actually like a lot of their skill position guys, whether it's Mike Evans or Deshaun Jackson. O.J. Howard at tight end, in his second year. They have a lot of pieces that I like, but the problem is they haven't really been able to put them together yet in a fashion to prove to you they can compete with those top 3 teams in this, which is, of course, like we said, toughest division in football. So, I don't know, 6 to 8 wins for them probably again.
I don't think they're going to get there because of the suspension. I really believe in Jameis, and I think he is going to be I think he'll put this stuff behind him and end up being a really, really good quarterback. He played well last year. But those 3 games, I mean, they start out the season at New Orleans, home for Philly, home for Pittsburgh without Jameis, which is that's almost a guaranteed 0-3, right? I mean, that's pretty tough.
And then they get him back for the Falcons, of course.
The Bears.
Oh, and then the Falcons. That's right. Yeah. So
maybe Philly at home they could steal.
Yeah, hey, I was saying that. If Philly's going to suck, that's a game they lose. You're right.
Good point. The thing about Jameis is, though, he's had this history of doing this stupid stuff that it makes you wonder if he's ever going to, the kid just has poor judgment. I mean, for whatever reason, he just can't get out of his own way. So we'll see what becomes of him long term. But, physically, on the field, no question. He's a great talent and should be a top-tier quarterback in this league, but it'll be up to him to get his head right if he ever wants to get there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is the last straw. Like, this Uber thing happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah, just in litigation for a while.
Yeah. But, I mean, Nike dropped him, I believe, and the team has kind of taken the this is it, no more BS approach. And he doesn't strike you as a stupid guy, I think that, like you said, poor judgment, dumb kid. But I think, he's a real leader out there, like on the field. And I mean, I trust him at the end of games and everything. I think he straightens his act out. I think this is the big wake up call for him. I hope it is, because the league will be better with him out there.
The big difference between them and the other three teams is the Tampa's defense every year is just so soft. When was the last time they had an established Pro Bowler from their defense?
Yeah.
Yeah. They traded for Jason Pierre-Paul, Three-Finger Louie. We'll see how that goes.
They have Gerald McCoy.
They do.
He's really, really good.
Yeah.
We will see what becomes of them. Like I said at the top, I've got the Falcons winning this division, but I do have New Orleans as a wild card. And did you guys have all three of these teams coming out? Is that what I heard right?
Yeah. Saints and Panthers as wild cards. Yeah.
And Falcons. Okay.
I had the Saints winning the division with the Falcons and Panthers as wild cards.
There you go. All right. Well, one last division to tackle. That, of course, being the NFC West, where last year the Los Angeles Rams seemingly came out of nowhere and just ran away with this thing. Granted, you've got some interesting storylines here. A lot of people think that there's a story in Seattle with possibly that window closing this year and them kind of finally, that run for them being over. Of course, you got the Jimmy Garoppolo story in San Francisco. And then you've got Arizona, where you're looking at Sam Bradford, who is trying to hold off Josh Rosen for that starting job. The interesting division, the NFC West. I look at the Rams first of all. I think Jared Goff continues to improve. Obviously, I'll be the homer and say I love Todd Gurley. He's going to continue to be the best back in the league, in my opinion. And weapons on the outside. And I know he wasn't great in Miami, but you put Ndamukong Suh next to Aaron Donald, I don't even know how you block that. That's a hell of a defensive line. It is going to be impressive to watch. I think they are balanced across the board, and they've got a chance to make a run at the Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they got Talib and Marcus Peters, too. They're head and shoulders above anyone else in this division. To me, this is just as much of a lock as the Patriots. This division isn't even close. The Rams are a really good team, and I mean, McVay is a really, really, really good coach. And I think Cooks, for the way they used Sammy Watkins as just a deep threat, Cooks is an upgrade there. Like you said, Gurley is all world. Robert Woods, for whatever reason, Jared Goff made him look like Jerry Rice last year. And
Cooper
Kupp
a lot. Yeah.
So they have it at the skill positions. They have the coach. They have the personnel on defense. They got a bunch of hotheads on defense, but if those guys can coexist, and they're all veterans, they're all veterans and haven't really won anything. You would think that they may be able to kind of coexist and not act like knuckleheads. They have to work out the Donald thing, but I mean, I think I'm 100% with you, Nick. I think they have to be the favorite for the Super Bowl coming out of the NFC.
D'Amato?
I wouldn't put them as a favorite for the Super Bowl, but definitely a bite off what Roger said. Next to New England, they're about as locked as it is for the division. They're head and shoulders above the other three in this division. As far as I see Arizona and Seattle fighting it out for 3 and 4, and San Fran will come in a second, but there might not even be a team other than the Rams over 500.
But you got the Niners second, so you're kind of buying into the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. You think he's ready to come in now after the way he finished out last year?
I think it's by default.
Yeah, but only because of the weakness of the Cardinals and Seattle do not look impressive. But then again, I wouldn't count out Pete Carroll to get and Russell Wilson to get him to 9 wins, maybe make a surprise run. Now that he got rid of a lot of his headaches.
Man, they look bad.
Yeah,
it looks bad.
Yeah,
I mean, Baldwin already came out and said his knee's going to not be 100% all season. Their offensive line's like the worst offensive line in football, and they've lost pretty much that whole defense. You know, Bobby Wagner is about what they got left. So,
yeah.
It's tough. It definitely feels like the end of an era in Seattle, but you know, even if they got to 9 wins, I think the NFC as a conference is so deep this year that 9 wins is probably not going to get in the playoffs, I don't think. I think you're going to have to win.
Better off going 4-12.
Yeah,
honestly.
You're going to have to win 10, 11 games to get in this year, I think, because of just the depth of the conference. So, I do kind of think that the Niners, though, are sitting right there ready to make that jump to second in the division. How many games they win? I don't know. 7, 8, somewhere in that range, probably.
Yeah, that's about right.
But it's the Rams and everybody else. I do buy Garoppolo, though. I know, Roger, you probably buy him as well, and probably wish New England had held on to him, huh?
Yeah, I don't really understand why they did that, but I think he's the real deal. I just don't. I think they're a year away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there are some pieces in place, and I mean, they were very good at the end of last year, but I think they're a year away from true contention. But I think the future is very bright there, and I do buy Garoppolo as a top 10 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, they gotta sign a big time receiver next year or draft one. I don't Marquise Goodwin and Pierre Garçon aren't at the top of the starters of receivers.
No, Goodwin.
They gotta help him out.
I mean, Goodwin and Garoppolo have a good connection, but yeah, they need one of those Cadillac guys, top of the draft.
Yeah,
they need in that whole class. Like, they could, there are going to be guys available, so they'll be able to bring someone in.
Yeah, either draft or free agent. Yeah, it'll come.
And then in Arizona, the one team we haven't really talked about at all. Like, I got to be honest, guys. Of the top 4 quarterbacks in this past year's draft, Rosen is by far the one that I have the most questions about. I don't think he's going to pan out long term. Maybe they let him play this year. Maybe they throw him to the Wolves and let him take his bumps and hope that he's able to learn from that and get better in year 2. But I'm not high on Josh Rosen as a long-term starter in the league. I just, and you look around him.
He already got dinged up in college with a couple of concussions, so that's a big red flag.
Because
Bradford
gets hurt getting out of bed in the
morning.
Yeah. And really, I mean, they have David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald.
Right.
On offense. So.
Larry Fitzgerald, who just keeps on coming out there, and every year I think he's done, and I look up at the end of the year and he's got 1,000 yards. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Great player and even better person.
Right.
Which is rare to find. But, I mean, so it's really not a terrible situation for Rosen. There's no expectations, which is nice, right? They're not expecting to be a playoff team or anything.
No, they got a first-year coach. The only thing is, you got to surround a rookie quarterback with the right personnel. They got a first-year coach, Wilkes, who's a defensive guy. So he has to trust his offensive coordinator in order to build the rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Johnson and Fitzgerald, like, it's Johnson. I mean, he got hurt last year, but I mean, he was just as good as Todd Gurley the year before.
Yeah.
I mean, he was running back in the NFL.
2 years ago, Gurley had a terrible year, and so, like, Johnson was better than Gurley.
Right, I meant what Gurley last year. And so, I mean, as a rookie, there's worse things than to be able to dump it off to that guy and to have Larry Fitzgerald just sitting open in the slot.
Right.
All game. And, I mean, Rosen can make all the throws. I mean, he seems like a bit of a knucklehead. Like, they give him he's got that Cutler kind of attitude. But, I mean, sometimes I think you're a little harsh on him, Nick. Because sometimes the guy turns out to be Cutler, but, other times, like Aaron Rodgers has that attitude.
Yeah, that's true.
Too.
That's true.
No one gives a shit because he's Aaron
Rodgers. Because he earned that, yeah. So we'll see if Rosen's able to get to that. But I think we're all going Rams in this division. I don't have a wild card coming out of here. Anybody else?
No way.
Okay. All right, so before we hop into our playoff picks and our Super Bowl picks, they're gonna round out the show. Real quick, let's go through some individual awards, and I'm just gonna throw out a category, and you guys give me a name. So let's start with the Rookies of the Year. Give me your Defensive Rookie of the Year, Raj.
Bradley Chubb.
Gotcha. D'Amato.
Jeez, it's going to look like we're sucking up to the host, Roquan Smith from Chicago, a former Bulldog.
I'm right there with you, Roquan Smith, because Chicago's defensive line not going to be that great, and they're going to funnel a lot of tackles to him. He's going to be sitting there in the middle, racking up big-time tackle numbers. He's going to be anchoring that defense for a long time to come. But I'll return the suck up, because I'm going to go Offensive Rookie of the Year, Saquon Barkley.
All right, I'll go Darnold to put the mush on the Jets.
I think Barkley's the obvious pick there. I would be shocked if he stays healthy. He's going to win it.
All right. What about your Defensive Player of the Year, Raj?
Defensive Player of the Year. I'm going to say Aaron Donald again.
Aaron Donald back to back. D'Amato.
All right, I'll say J.J. Watt stays healthy and gets back to it.
I'll go full homer again on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to say Deion Jones finally steps into superstardom, and people take notice of him.
I know we don't talk about betting, but if you really think that's going to happen, you should probably look into that, because I bet you could get pretty good odds.
I'll have to take your advice offline. Offensive Player of the Year. This kind of sometimes tends to be the MVP, and sometimes it doesn't, but we'll take it as a different category. Offensive Player of the Year. Raj?
Oh man, I don't want to be the homer. Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. D'Amato.
Man, I'm anything but a suck up to the host, but I got Matt Ryan.
Wow. Jesus, are you kidding me?
Man, I wish that would be true, but I don't know that I have that much faith in Steve Sarkisian. I'm gonna go homer again and say Todd Gurley gets it. Offensive Player of the Year this year. Big numbers out of the backfield, that kind of stuff. But for MVP, I'm with you, Raj. I'm going to go Aaron Rodgers because I think he's going to have a huge year this year.
Well, I'll obviously say Rodgers.
Rodgers. D'Amato, your MVP?
I'll go Gurley.
Gurley. There you are. I like it. All right, so we've arrived at the end of the show where we're going to run down our playoff picks. And just to remind people what we had, in case you weren't tracking as we went along, in the AFC, I had the Patriots coming out of the East, the Steelers out of the North, the Texans out of the South, the Chiefs out of the West, and the Chargers and Jaguars as my wild cards. In the NFC, I had the Eagles out of the East, the Packers out of the North, Falcons in the South, Rams in the West, and then I had the Saints and Vikings as my wild cards. Raj, what'd you have real quick?
Pats, Steelers, Titans, Chiefs, with Denver and Cincinnati. That's the wild card.
Gotcha. And D'Amato?
Pats, Steelers, Broncos, and the three in the South. Titans and Texans as wild cards, and the Jags with the division.
Gotcha. And in the NFC?
Giants.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Raj.
Sorry. Giants, Packers, Saints, Rams, with the Panthers and the Falcons as the wild cards.
Okay.
Eagles, Rams, Packers, and Atlanta in the South, and the other two as the wild card. Panthers and Saints as the wild cards.
All right. So we're not going to do every game of the playoffs because I think that gets a little weird to keep up with the seedings and all that. But give me your AFC title game. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I've got Texans, Steelers in the AFC title game, and I like Pittsburgh to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
I got a rematch of last year, the Jags and Pats.
Okay.
I will go Patriots and Chiefs.
All right. And over in the NFC, I'm going to go Rams, Packers. What about you guys?
Falcons, Packers.
Okay.
Rams, Saints.
Rams, Saints. Interesting. And Super Bowl, I am saying it's going to be Steelers, Packers in a rematch of Aaron Rodgers' only Super Bowl win to date.
I got it's gonna be a Southern-based Super Bowl. I got the Falcons and the Jags, with Atlanta being the first home team hosting the Super Bowl, and Nick's gonna be out there Get the firing up the grill.
Nick will be fired up. You don't even want to know what would happen on that day. Raj, what about you, man?
I'll go Rams Chiefs.
Rams Chiefs. All right, and Super Bowl champions. I do it almost every year. Greg Phillips can attest to this. I'm taking the Packers to win the Super Bowl.
Rams.
It's going to be ATL.
Oh, my God. You're just trying to butter me up, D'Amato, but I like it. I like it. It's all good. Well, guys, this has been a ton of fun. I have enjoyed doing this, and we're going to try and do this periodically, not every week, but maybe every couple weeks. Just touch in on the NFL season. We're going to have a variety of guests throughout the year, and I'll be sure to reach back out to you guys at some point to check in on the Giants and Patriots, respectively. But if you got anything you want to throw out there for anybody, any social media you want to plug, or any other things you're doing for PTBN you want people to be aware of?
It's the year of the Red Rifle. I have nothing to plug and nothing else I'm doing for PTBN. So awesome. We're good there.
Look for something on PTBN Sports 2.0. Look for some written content, NFL related all season.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, guys, I hope you guys have had as much fun recording this as I have. And for listeners, I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Stay tuned to Place to Be Nation Sports Network, as throughout the football year, I'll be checking in with you from both a college and NFL perspective. And we hope you've had a good time. Catch us next time.